70 to 80 mile-per-hour winds, 160,000 homes in darkness, and tornadoes spinning up in places where they should never happen. If you think this is just another winter storm, you're about to discover why meteorologists are calling this the most complex weather pattern in a decade. In the next 25 minutes, I'll show you exactly when the coldest air of the season arrives at your doorstep, and the 3 specific danger zones where ice accumulation could reach catastrophic levels. Here's a number that should stop you in your tracks: 3/4 of an inch. That's how thick the ice could get in parts of Pennsylvania and Maryland. 3/4 of an inch of ice doesn't just make roads slippery, it snaps trees in half. It brings down power lines by the thousands. It turns entire regions into disaster zones. And here's your first reward. At exactly the 5-minute mark, I'm going to reveal the precise hour-by-hour timeline of this Arctic invasion, showing you when temperatures will drop from the 60s to below freezing in less than 48 hours. You need to see this. But let me start with what's happening right this moment on the West Coast, because it's almost hard to believe. California is experiencing something meteorologists rarely see outside of spring and summer. Tornado warnings. Not one, not two, multiple tornado warnings across northern, central, and southern California. The probability zone covers a 2% area. Now, if you're not familiar with tornado forecasting, let me explain what 2% means. That's the same probability threshold we use in the Great Plains during tornado season. That's significant. That's the atmosphere saying conditions are ripe for rotation, for funnel clouds, for touchdowns. Los Angeles at risk. San Francisco in the zone. Sacramento on alert. San Diego watching carefully. When was the last time all 4 of these cities had tornado concerns on the same day? It's exceptional, it's rare, and it's happening right now. But tornadoes aren't the only threat California faces. The winds are ferocious. 70 to 80 mile-per-hour gusts reported near Los Angeles in the last 24 hours. Those are hurricane-force winds. Those are winds that tear roofs off buildings, that uproot trees, that turn anything not tied down into a projectile. And the power situation keeps getting worse. 160,000 homes without electricity, and that number is fluctuating. Why fluctuating? Because crews restore power in one area while the storm knocks it out in another. It's a constant battle. And the counties getting hit hardest are right along the coast. The higher elevations too, but the coastal communities are bearing the brunt of this assault. 2 more landslides in the last 24 hours. Roads buried, communities isolated, emergency crews struggling to reach people who need help. This is the kind of situation where weather becomes more than an inconvenience, it becomes life-threatening. And while all this chaos unfolds in California, there's something building in the upper atmosphere that's about to change everything for the rest of the country. An Arctic air mass so powerful, so extensive, that it's going to reach all the way to the Gulf Coast. Now, here's where the pattern gets really interesting. This storm system that's pounding California isn't staying put. It's stretching all the way to the Four Corners region. Colorado, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, all getting involved in this weather event. The heavy snow that's falling in the Sierra Nevada is going to spread north. Tonight, the coastal regions of Oregon and Washington get hammered. Then it pushes inland. Idaho gets hit. Montana sees significant snowfall. Western Wyoming buried under fresh powder. 4 to 5 feet of new snow for the higher elevations. 4 to 5 feet on top of what's already there. We're talking snowpack measured in tens of feet, not inches. Ski resorts that were worried about lack of snow a month ago now have more than they know what to do with. But here's the transition that everyone needs to watch carefully. That moisture pushing east is going to run into cold air, and when moisture meets cold air in winter, you get one of 2 things, snow or ice, and the line between snow and ice is razor thin. Northeastern Minnesota and northern Wisconsin are about to experience this transition firsthand. Starting tonight, going into early morning hours, freezing rain develops. 1/10 of an inch of ice accumulation. Doesn't sound like much until you try to drive on it. Doesn't sound like much until you watch tree branches start to bow under the weight. The Upper Peninsula of Michigan gets a mixture. Sleet first, then freezing rain, then snow right on top of it. This creates layers. Each layer makes the situation more dangerous. Ice under snow is nearly impossible to see, nearly impossible to navigate safely. Tomorrow brings the main event for the Northeast. And this is where you need to pay very close attention if you live anywhere from Michigan through Pennsylvania, into New York, Northern Maryland, Delaware, or New Jersey. Freezing rain. Not just a little. Not just an inconvenience. Potentially catastrophic ice accumulation. The forecast models are converging on 1/4 of an inch of ice as a baseline. 1/4 of an inch brings down tree limbs, causes scattered power outages, makes travel extremely hazardous. But some of the models, and this is the terrifying part, are showing up to 3/4 of an inch of ice in certain locations. 3/4 of an inch is a different category of disaster. That's widespread power outages lasting days or weeks. That's thousands of trees down. That's roads completely impassable. That's emergency services unable to respond because they can't get through. Western New York, you're in the bullseye. Pennsylvania, especially the western and northern counties, you're in the danger zone. Northern Maryland, this could be the worst ice storm you've seen in years. The timing matters here. This isn't a quick-moving system. The models show this freezing rain setting up tomorrow around noon and continuing all evening, all night, into the next morning. Hours and hours of ice accumulation, each hour making the situation worse. Let me paint you a picture of what 3/4 of an inch of ice actually looks like. Imagine coating everything, every single surface, with ice as thick as your thumb. Power lines sag under the weight, poles lean at dangerous angles. Trees that have stood for decades simply give up and collapse. And when those power lines come down, when those trees fall, they don't just create an inconvenience, they create hazards. Live wires on the ground, roads blocked. And in winter, without power, homes get cold fast, dangerously cold. This is why preparation matters. This is why you need to act before the ice starts falling, not after. Now, while the ice is the immediate threat for tomorrow, the snow is the story for parts of the Northeast. And we're not talking about a dusting. We're talking about significant accumulation. 3 to 5 inches in the lighter zones, shown in blue on the forecast maps. But all that pink? That's 6 to 8, possibly 9 inches of snow. Eastern Pennsylvania gets buried. Central and northern New Jersey see major accumulation. New York, Long Island, southwestern Connecticut, all looking at 6+ inches. The models show a very fine line between who gets snow and who gets ice. A shift of 20 or 30 miles in the storm track changes everything. This is the challenge of winter forecasting in the transition zone. You can nail every other aspect of the forecast and still miss, because the rain-snow line set up 10 miles further north or south than predicted. But regardless of whether you get snow or ice, what comes next affects everyone. And I mean everyone from the West Coast to the East Coast, from the Canadian border to the Gulf of Mexico. The Arctic blast. Here's the timeline I promised you. This is minute by minute, hour by hour, exactly what's going to happen over the next 5 days. And this information could save your life, could protect your property, could help you prepare for what's coming. Saturday evening. The Arctic front arrives. You'll feel it. The temperature won't just drop, it'll plummet. If you're at 60 degrees Saturday afternoon, you could be at 30 degrees by Saturday midnight. That's a 30-degree drop in 6 hours. Sunday morning. Wake up to a different world. Negative temperatures in the northern plains. North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, all below zero. Not wind chill. Actual air temperature below zero. Wind chills reaching -20 to -30. But it doesn't stop in the northern states. This cold is aggressive. It's pushing south with remarkable speed. Sunday afternoon, your high temperatures will feel like winter night temperatures. Most of the Midwest struggles to reach the 20s for a high. Some areas stay below zero all day. The northern tier states see highs in the single digits or below zero. This is dangerous cold. This is the kind of cold where you don't go outside without serious preparation. This is the kind of cold that kills people who aren't careful. Sunday evening, the cold reaches Texas. Freezing temperatures arrive in the northern part of the state. The Dallas-Fort Worth metro area sees temperatures drop to 32 degrees or below. Areas further north could hit the upper 20s. Monday morning, the peak of the cold. This is when the Arctic air reaches its maximum southern extent. Freezing temperatures from Washington state all the way across to the Atlantic Ocean. Northern Texas frozen solid. Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, the Carolinas, all below 32 degrees. Even Florida isn't spared. Northern parts of the state will likely see frost. Citrus growers are preparing to protect their crops. This is the kind of cold that doesn't happen often in Florida. But when it does, it causes real damage. The high temperatures on Monday won't provide relief. The Midwest stays frozen. The Northeast stays frozen. Even the South struggles to get much above freezing in many areas. This is a prolonged cold event, not a quick overnight freeze. Tuesday morning, the coldest morning of the entire event. This is when temperatures bottom out across the widest area. Frozen temperatures extending from the Pacific Northwest all the way through to the Atlantic, from the Canadian border all the way to the Gulf Coast. Washington, Oregon, Nevada, all frozen. Northern Texas, possibly even the Dallas-Fort Worth area, at or below freezing. Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, all well below freezing. The entire Northeast locked in deep cold. But here's what makes this even more dangerous: the wind. This Arctic air mass is bringing sustained winds of 30 to 40 miles per hour. Those winds turn cold temperatures into life-threatening wind chills. When the actual temperature is 10 degrees and you add a 40-mile-per-hour wind, the wind chill drops to -15 or -20. At those wind chills, frostbite occurs in 10 minutes or less on exposed skin. Going outside becomes genuinely hazardous. The wind chill forecast for Tuesday morning shows wind chills below zero, extending all the way into northern Florida. The Midwest sees wind chills in the -20s and 30s. The northern states could experience wind chills of -40 or colder. -40 is the temperature where Fahrenheit and Celsius meet. It's the same in both scales. And it's the temperature where normal life becomes difficult. Cars won't start. Pipes burst even in insulated homes. Simply being outside for more than a few minutes becomes dangerous. Now, there's something in Scripture that speaks to moments like this. The Psalms tell us that God sends out His command to the earth. His word runs swiftly. He gives snow like wool. He scatters frost like ashes. He hurls down His crystals of ice like crumbs. Who can stand before His cold? When you're watching temperatures drop 50 degrees in 2 days, when you're seeing Arctic air sweep across an entire continent, you can't help but be reminded of the awesome power of creation. The same God who set the boundaries of the seas, who established the patterns of weather, is sovereign over every temperature drop, every snowflake, every gust of wind. That doesn't mean we shouldn't prepare. Wisdom requires preparation. But it does mean we can trust even in the midst of severe weather. We can prepare practically while trusting spiritually. Now, let me show you what's happening with the forecast models, because there's some disagreement that you need to know about, and this disagreement could mean the difference between 6 inches of snow and a foot of snow for millions of people. There's a low-pressure system forecast to develop Sunday into Monday right along the front between the Arctic air and the warmer air. The European model, which is often considered the gold standard for medium-range forecasting, is tracking this low further to the east. If the European model is correct, the heavy snow falls across the mid-Atlantic and northeast. We're talking 6 to 9 inches from eastern Pennsylvania through New York. The wraparound snow on the backside of the system adds even more accumulation. But the American GFS model has a different solution. It's tracking that low-pressure system further west, over Illinois. If the GFS is right, the heavy snow shifts west. The Midwest could see significant accumulation instead of the Northeast. This is a classic model disagreement, and forecasters won't know which model is correct until about 24 to 48 hours before the event. That's when the models usually converge and agree on a solution. What we do know for certain is that snow is coming somewhere. The cold is coming everywhere. And the combination of snow and extreme cold is going to create dangerous conditions, regardless of exactly where the heaviest snow falls. Behind this system, the freeze intensifies. Let me show you the temperature forecast progression, because seeing it hour by hour really drives home how dramatic this change is going to be. Sunday morning. The European model shows negative temperatures arriving across the northern tier. Very cold wind chills developing. Even the high temperatures for the day remain frozen across most of the northern half of the country. The 20s and teens for highs. Negative temperatures in the purple zones. The wind chills are what make this particularly dangerous. Even for your high temperatures on Sunday, vast areas are going to feel frozen and even colder due to the wind. It's not just cold, it's dangerously cold. Monday morning. Freezing temperatures pushing all the way down to the Four Corners region. Northern Texas frozen. All the way across through Indiana, some areas seeing negative actual temperatures. And the wind chills make everything feel even colder. The western states feel the cold. The south-central region feels the cold. The Great Lakes region feels the cold. This is comprehensive. This is the kind of Arctic outbreak that makes national news because it affects so many people. When you compare the European model to the GFS model, you see they're trending together. They both show this extreme cold. They both show the same general pattern. The only real disagreement is the exact position of that snow-producing low-pressure system. Your highs for Monday show a slight warm-up along the southern tier, the 40s, even some 50s in the deep south. But you remain frozen in all the blue zones, negative temperatures persist in the purple areas, and the wind chills continue to make it feel even colder than the actual temperature. Tuesday morning brings the deepest penetration of the cold. This is when the Arctic air reaches its maximum southern extent. Frozen temperatures from Washington, Oregon, Nevada, all the way across to the East Coast. Northern Texas, potentially at or below freezing. The Dallas-Fort Worth area on the edge. Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, the Carolinas, all frozen solid. The Northeast locked in deep cold. The GFS model actually shows an even deeper trough. Even colder air pushing even further south. Some versions of the model bring freezing temperatures deeper into Texas, possibly affecting areas that rarely see frost. And the wind chills? The wind chill forecast shows freezing temperatures extending even deeper into Texas, all across Louisiana and the South. The European model shows similar results, with the wind chill zone shifting slightly toward Florida. Wind chills making it feel frozen across areas that should be mild. This is the kind of cold event that tests infrastructure, that strains power grids, that causes pipes to burst, that creates genuine hardship for people who aren't prepared. But here's something you need to understand about this pattern. This cold snap, as intense as it is, isn't the end of the story. It's going to retreat. As we move into the very beginning of January, temperatures will moderate. You'll get a warm-up. Things will feel almost normal again. And that's when people will let their guard down. That's when people will think winter showed its hand and is backing off. But the models are showing something different. They're showing this cold coming right back again. Mid-January, possibly around the 15th to the 20th, another significant Arctic outbreak. Both the European and the GFS models are hinting at this. The pattern shows cold air reloading over Western Canada, temperatures dropping to well below average, and then that cold pushing south again into the United States. This second outbreak could be even more intense than what we're about to experience. It could be even more widespread. It could last even longer. The exact details are still uncertain because we're looking 3 to 4 weeks out, but the pattern signal is there. And it's strong. This suggests we're not looking at one cold snap and then back to mild winter. We're looking at a pattern shift. We're looking at winter finally taking hold after a remarkably warm start to the season. We're looking at multiple Arctic outbreaks between now and February. For those of you in agricultural areas, this matters tremendously. The recent warmth has confused some plants. Trees are budding when they shouldn't be. Flowers are blooming out of season. When this Arctic air hits, when temperatures drop from the 60s to the 20s in 48 hours, those buds die. Those blooms freeze. And that affects crop yields for the following year. Fruit trees in the South are particularly vulnerable. Peach orchards in Georgia, citrus groves in Florida, these are all at risk when you get extreme temperature swings like what we're about to see. Farmers know this. They're watching these forecasts carefully. They're taking protective measures where possible. But there's only so much you can do when Mother Nature decides to swing the temperature pendulum this dramatically. Now, let me talk about the snow totals one more time, because I want to make sure everyone understands what we're looking at. The higher elevations of California are looking at another 4 to 5 feet. That's on top of what they've already received. We're talking cumulative snowpack in some areas approaching 20 to 30 feet for the season so far. Northern Montana gets 1/10 of an inch of freezing rain. Not enough to cause major problems, but enough to make roads treacherous. Northeastern Minnesota and northern Wisconsin also looking at about 1/10 of an inch of ice before it transitions to snow. The western upper peninsula of Michigan gets ice first, then snow. The eastern UP and northern Michigan see mostly snow with some ice mixing in. This is that transition zone where forecasting becomes incredibly difficult. For the Northeast, the snow totals are impressive where the snow falls. 3 to 5 inches in the lighter zones, 6 to 8, possibly 9 inches in the heavier zones. Eastern Pennsylvania, central and northern New Jersey, New York, Long Island, southwestern Connecticut, all looking at significant accumulation. But again, there's that fine line, the rain snow line, the ice snow line, these determine who gets what. and they won't be precisely known until the system is actually moving through. That's the frustrating reality of winter forecasting in the transition zones. The ice forecast is what really concerns meteorologists. 1/10 of an inch for northeastern Minnesota and northern Wisconsin, possibly up to 2/10 of an inch, which would make it a really dangerous situation. Southeastern Michigan showing similar potential. 1/10 of an inch or more as the system tracks further south and east. But the real concern, the area where forecasters are most worried, is Pennsylvania, western New York, and Maryland. This is where the latest data is showing the potential for 3/4 of an inch of ice. The 8Z run, that's the 8 AM model run, shows ice accumulation that could reach catastrophic levels in certain areas. This would cause massive power outages, extensive tree damage, roads completely impassable for days. Right behind the ice comes heavy snow for Canada and the UP of Michigan. But the Northeast gets the major snow event. 6 to 9 inches shown in pink across the forecast maps. This is significant accumulation that will impact travel, shut down schools, create hazardous conditions. Now, here's what happens after this initial system moves through. The cold blast settles in, and the models show it retracting back slightly as we approach New Year's. You get a brief warm-up, but then, mid-January, it comes roaring back again. The GFS model actually takes the cold even deeper in mid-January than what we're seeing now. That's saying something, because what we're about to experience is already a significant Arctic outbreak. The pattern shows this cold air locked up over western Canada. Temperatures there are 30 to 40 degrees below average. That's the source region. That's the reservoir of Arctic air that keeps getting tapped and sent south into the United States. As long as that cold pool exists over western Canada and Alaska, as long as the jet stream pattern favors tapping into it and bringing it south, we're going to continue seeing these Arctic outbreaks throughout January and possibly into February. Let me give you the wind forecast, because the wind is a crucial part of this story. Saturday evening through Sunday morning, sustained winds of 30 to 40 miles per hour. Those winds, combined with the cold temperatures, create wind chills that are genuinely life-threatening. Your highs for Sunday remain dangerously cold across most of the country. It's not just an overnight cold snap, it's an all-day cold event. Even the warmest part of the day will be colder than a normal winter night for many locations. The cold continues pushing south throughout Sunday. By Monday morning, it reaches its maximum extent, and the high temperatures on Monday show little relief. Most areas stay frozen. Some areas stay well below zero. The wind gusts remain strong. 30 to 40 mile per hour gusts are forecast for many areas, maybe high 30s for some locations. And those wind gusts, combined with the temperature, create wind chills that make being outside extremely hazardous. Tuesday morning brings the coldest temperatures and the most extensive freeze, but also some of the strongest wind chills. This is when the combination of actual temperature and wind speed creates the most dangerous conditions. Now, there's another weather element we need to watch. As this cold air crashes into the warmer air to the south, as that temperature gradient becomes very sharp, low-pressure systems can develop. Strong low-pressure systems. The models are showing this potential for Sunday morning through Sunday evening. Storms, developing ahead of the Arctic front. These storms bring strong winds even before the Arctic air arrives. And then, as the low pressure strengthens, it can produce significant precipitation. If the track is right, if the temperatures align correctly, this could produce a major snowstorm Monday into the northeast. The wraparound snow on the backside of the low could add significant accumulation to what's already fallen. But even if the snow doesn't materialize as heavily as some models suggest, the cold is real. The freeze is coming. The wind chills are going to be dangerous. These are certainties, not possibilities. Let me show you the comparison between the European model and the GFS model one more time, because understanding where they agree and disagree helps you understand the forecast uncertainty. They both agree on the cold. They both show negative temperatures across the north. They both show freezing temperatures pushing deep into the south. They both show dangerous wind chills. On these elements, there's consensus. Where they disagree is the position of the low-pressure system that develops Sunday into Monday. The European takes it further east, which favors snow for the mid-Atlantic and northeast. The GFS takes it further west over Illinois, which would shift the heavy snow into the Midwest. This 100 to 200 mile difference in storm track is the uncertainty in the forecast. Everything else, the cold, the wind, the general pattern, that's solid. But exactly where the heaviest snow falls? That won't be known with certainty until we're within 24 to 36 hours of the event. For your high temperatures Sunday, both models show similar patterns. Frozen across most of the northern half of the country. Negative temperatures in the northern plains. Wind chills making it feel even colder everywhere. For Monday, the models continue to trend together. Highs warming slightly in the deep south, reaching the 40s and 50s, but remaining frozen across all the blue zones on the map. Negative temperatures continuing in some northern areas. Wind chills continuing to create dangerous conditions. Tuesday morning shows the deepest cold and the most extensive freeze. Both models agree on this. They show slightly different details about exact temperatures in specific locations, but the overall pattern is consistent. This is going to be a significant, dangerous, prolonged cold event. Now, I want to talk about what all of this means practically, because forecast maps and model data are interesting, but what really matters is how this affects your daily life, how this affects your safety, how this affects your community. If you're in California right now, you're dealing with immediate threats: tornadoes, high winds, power outages, flooding, mudslides. Your focus needs to be on staying safe right now. Don't travel unless absolutely necessary. Have emergency supplies ready. Know your evacuation routes if you're in a mudslide-prone area. If you're in the ice storm warning areas, Pennsylvania, Maryland, New York, New Jersey, Delaware, you need to prepare for extended power outages. And I mean extended. Ice storms can knock out power for days or weeks in the hardest-hit areas. Have flashlights, batteries, a battery-powered radio. Have a way to heat at least one room without electricity. Have food that doesn't require cooking. Have water stored. If you're in the areas expecting heavy snow, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, parts of the Northeast, prepare to be stuck at home for a day or two. Make sure you have enough food and supplies. Make sure your snow removal equipment is ready. Make sure you have a backup plan if you lose power. If you're anywhere in the path of this Arctic blast, and that's most of the eastern two-thirds of the country, you need to protect your home. Let faucets drip to prevent pipes from freezing. Open cabinet doors so warm air can reach pipes. Disconnect garden hoses. Bring pets inside. Make sure you have enough heating fuel. And check on your neighbors. Especially elderly neighbors. Especially those who live alone. A phone call could save a life. An offer to help could make the difference between someone staying warm and safe or becoming a statistic. The Bible calls us to love our neighbor as ourselves. In times of severe weather, that's not abstract theology. That's concrete action. That's making sure the widow down the street has heat. That's helping the elderly couple next door clear their driveway. That's community in action. There's a reason churches have historically been warming centers during extreme cold. There's a reason faith communities step up during disasters. Because faith without works is dead. And loving your neighbor means taking care of people when they're vulnerable. This cold snap is going to test our infrastructure. It's going to test our power grids. It's going to test our emergency services. But it's also going to test our character. How we respond to those in need. How we care for the vulnerable. How we come together as communities. Let me give you one final piece of information that ties all of this together. The pattern we're seeing right now, this extreme cold following unusual warmth, this isn't just random chaos. There's a meteorological explanation. The polar vortex, which is basically a large area of cold air that normally sits over the Arctic, has been very strong and very stable over Western Canada. Temperatures there have been 30 to 40 degrees below average for weeks. That cold air has been locked in place. But the jet stream pattern is shifting. That lock is breaking. And when it breaks, all that pent-up Arctic air is going to come rushing south. That's what we're seeing start to happen now. That's why the cold is so intense. That's why it's reaching so far south. And based on the long-range models, this isn't a one-time event. The pattern is setting up for this to happen multiple times this winter. The cold retreats, reloads over Canada, then pushes south again, each time potentially bringing another significant Arctic outbreak. This is winter asserting itself. This is the pattern finally flipping after an unusually warm November and early December. This is what meteorologists have been watching for and expecting. In my next video, I'm going to dive deep into that mid-January cold outbreak I've been mentioning. I'm going to show you the specific model data, explain exactly why forecasters are confident another major Arctic blast is coming, and give you the timeline so you can prepare. I'll also break down the long-range outlook for February, because there are hints that the pattern might finally shift back to something more normal. The west might finally get sustained moisture. The east might get a break from the cold. But that's still 6 to 7 weeks away, and a lot can change. For now, focus on the next week. Focus on getting through this ice storm. Focus on surviving this Arctic blast. Focus on helping your community weather this together. Before I close, let me leave you with this thought. We live in an age of remarkable forecasting ability. We can see these weather patterns days in advance. We can warn people. We can prepare. That's a blessing. That's a gift that previous generations didn't have. But that gift only helps if we use it wisely. If we prepare, if we take action, if we look out for one another. God is sovereign over the weather. The scriptures make that clear. He sends the snow, the ice, the cold. He also gives us the wisdom to prepare, the ability to forecast, the responsibility to care for each other. So, prepare. Take this forecast seriously. Make the practical preparations you need to make. And then trust. Trust that you've done what you can. Trust that God is in control. Trust that this too shall pass. Winter is here. Really, truly here. And it's going to be challenging. But we'll get through it together. We'll help each other. We'll be the hands and feet of Christ to those who need it. Stay safe out there. Watch those forecasts closely. Take care of your neighbors. And I'll see you in the next video with the latest on what's coming in mid-January. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May His face shine upon you and give you peace, even in the midst of the storm.